I think everyone, when they shoot the balled up paper, they say Kobe. They don't say Spanoulis. You know what I mean? So like that's the idea. That's everyone's dream. Everyone wants to be LeBron, wants to be Kobe. I think for Ergin, he's like you said, he gives the freedom to play, but you know he also holds you responsible. I think the biggest thing with Giannis that I notice is that he leads by example. Doesn't say much, but just his work ethic. I remember after he got injured, I was in the practice facility like a few nights later, and he was already back in there working, trying to get ready for the game.
Elάιζα, thank you for being with us.
Of course.
You were the second player in basketball history to become NBA and Euroleague champion in back-to-back years. You win a title every year, and you revealed that you talked to the mirror before the 22 final, Euroleague final, and you said to yourself that I'm going to be a champion tomorrow. How is the mindset to prepare yourself for all these big games?
I think for me is, like you said, manifestations. You know, what you plant in the mind will grow, whether that's negative or positive. And I believe in that. And I don't think too much about what people think because their views are based on the lenses they see through, their insecurities, their past experiences. So we all have our insecurities, so I see people through my lenses, you know. So when it comes to basketball manifestations in my life, I think the biggest thing is just first working. That's where I get my confidence from. And I work really hard during the summer to put myself in a position to, you know, be in these games and have the opportunity to play with such great players, you know, in the NBA or in Euroleague. But I think, like you said, it's if you don't believe in yourself, then who does? You know, so I always tell people, at the end of the day, I'm my biggest fan. You know, if I'm not my biggest fan, then who is? So that's all I have to say.
Is there any lesson for you that you try to keep from the previous trophy and the previous achievement of yours?
Yeah, I think for me, those 2 years I had a crazy run. Unfortunately, these past few years we haven't made the playoffs, so it was almost like I knew nothing but winning, you know, and trying to find humility and trying to find motivation to still have those hard summers, those 2 days, those 3 days during the summer is not necessarily the easiest thing because you're winning. So if I change my habits, does it change the result? I don't know, but my biggest goal is to see how good Elάιζα Bryant can be in his career, whether that's going back to the NBA, whether that's, you know, winning MVP in EuroLeague, whatever that is, what can Elάιζα Bryant be when he's done and he sits back and retires? So,
can you please share your favorite moment or memory from the 2021 NBA Finals, especially as you had to overcome, you know, a 2-0 deficit versus the Suns?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I learned from that experience is I remember, obviously I wasn't playing a lot at the time, and I remember we went down 0-2 to Brooklyn, and we were walking back to the locker room. And in my head, thinking my first experience in NBA, dang, down 0-2 to Brooklyn, KD, James, Kyrie. I mean, it's probably over, right? Like, I remember PJ Tucker stating, he said, "They did what they did. Now we need to do what we need to do." And that was such a veteran mindset at the time of understanding that they protected home court. Now we're going to go home, protect our home court, recalibrate, and go get these wins. And I think we had some things in our favor with, you know, Kyrie getting injured and stuff like that. I mean, KD's foot being a little bit too big, but
that was my next question. Take me to that moment.
Yeah. So it was actually in that moment, I forgot who I was telling. It might have been Jordan, actually. I was like, if I get close up to KD, I'm gonna ask him for his jersey. That's what I was thinking, right? So the game's going on, and you can't really see our facial expressions during the game because at the time we had the mask on. And when he shot the shot, I was like, no way we just lost like that. There's no freaking way we just lost like that. And they go to review it, and obviously it's short. And when I was already on the court, like kind of like, oh, okay, after we won. And it just so happened I bumped into KD, and I was like so nervous. Like I was like, oh my gosh, it's KD. And he's like, oh, good game. But then in my head, I was like, I didn't play. How are you telling me good game, you know? But it was a surreal experience to move on from that matchup.
NBA stars like KD, as you said, mention all the time Giannis' leadership. What do you remember playing alongside the Greek Freak?
I think the biggest thing with Giannis that I noticed is that he leads by example. Doesn't say much, but just his work ethic. I remember after he got injured, I was in the practice facility like a few nights later, and he was already back in there working, trying to get ready for the game. We had shoot around the day before the first game in the finals, and dude is going crazy hard with the knee brace on. That's when the coach was like, you know, like he just hyperextended his leg. If you, like, he doesn't know anything else. He knows one speed, that's it. So like that type of mindset for a guy who's already accomplished so much was very inspiring for me, understanding like no matter what, you have to work hard every single day, and it makes total sense coming from his background.
Do you think that you had the chance to play with a leader like him here in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Shane, Vasa, those guys were, are very good leaders. Obviously, I'm still playing with Shane. And again, they lead by example. And I would say my little time spent in the NBA compared to Europe, you spend a lot more time with your teammates in Europe because, you know, domestically, you're busing places, you're on the fly a lot. So more so picking their brain of how to, you know, manage their body during the season, how to manage different little things that not necessarily everything in the NBA is taken care of for you. Your bags to your room, you know, food made for you. So yeah, I'd definitely say Shane and Vasa.
Is there any great opponent or a player you watched or faced in Europe?
Great player. I mean, there's a bunch of great players in Europe. I think Mike James is good. Obviously, I always tell Shane this when I played him and I would have to guard him. It was like, because he's quick, but he also can shoot. So for me, that's kind of not a nightmare, but a difficult matchup. So I'm glad that I'm not going against him anymore.
There is this never-ending debate about the easiest league to score between NBA and the Euroleague. What's your take?
NBA is definitely easier. I mean, as the Euroleague says, every game matters, but also every possession matters. There's fewer games, the game slows down. And in the NBA, if you watch, it's all about analytics now. It's about how many threes can you make, threes and dunks. Mid-range is not really a thing unless, you know, DeMar DeRozan, KD, these type of guys, but everyone's shooting 50 plus threes, you know? So I think it's definitely easier to score in the NBA, and then you have the defensive second role. So it's pretty much like make a decision and play off the closeout or shoot the three.
Is there any misconception that the Americans have or had about European basketball?
I think the biggest thing I would say is, I don't know if there's a misconception, maybe confusion on like leagues, you know, like, because Americans classify basketball overseas as overseas basketball, which can range from, I don't know, I played First Division Israel to EuroLeague, you know, so there's a big difference, and also sometimes players don't understand that the fundamentals that Europeans go through in terms of development compared to the highlight culture in America.
Do you think that perhaps the American players feel like playing overseas something like a failure, I don't know if it's a heavy word, to their NBA dream?
Yeah, I think everyone, when they shoot the balled up paper, they say Kobe. They don't say Spanoulis. You know what I mean? So like that's the idea. That's everyone's dream. Everyone wants to be LeBron, wants to be Kobe. So I think a lot of people can see it as a failure, but people don't understand because I didn't watch EuroLeague growing up, you know, and I think that's a big opportunity for EuroLeague to tap into that American market, to show people these games, to show people these experiences, and these players that are actually really good players who just weren't one of the top 400 players in the NBA. You know, there's only so many spots, and there's a lot of players who even don't have jobs right now, but could easily play in EuroLeague, but are trying to, you know, still get to the NBA.
Any thoughts about the NBA's plan for a European league?
Yeah, I think it's very beneficial for both parties involved, whether that's EuroLeague, NBA, FIBA. I think the more we can grow the game of basketball, it'll help everybody involved. But with EuroLeague, as a business, I feel like they're missing opportunity to make more money in terms of the teams. I think only 2 teams are profitable in EuroLeague, maybe Alba Berlin and Zalgiris, or maybe Partizan, one of these big fan clubs. But the NBA is entertainment. It understands that. And I think EuroLeague has a better basketball product, but the marketing side, I think the NBA could help. So I think it might be tough to push both parties to agree on something, but just like in the PGA Tour and Live Golf, I think if you have someone competing to make a better product, it makes everyone better.
Is this something that you players discuss about?
Yeah, we talk about it. We talk about how is it possible for there to be no domestic league anymore, you know? I mean, we're playing, excuse me, we're playing over 100 games a year, you know? So to be able to limit those games to, you know, you're going to only the big cities, I think it would entice even better talent to come over in Europe.
Do you think that there's any reason for the EuroLeague to be worried about all these rumors or the NBA plan?
Worried? I mean, they probably already had conversations with, you know, the management and the NBA, but I think there should be an open discussion. Obviously, I'm just a player, but this is just my opinion. But when someone's trying to come into the market who is technically the global leader in it, I think at least you should listen, see what they have to say, and maybe implement some of those strategies into your product, allowing you to make your product better. So I wouldn't necessarily say worried, but maybe just open ears and some humility to listen to even make our product better, because the product we have at EuroLeague is a very elite product. And the sad thing for me is that people in America don't really know about it. So, you know.
You played for Ergin Ataman in Efes. Former players of him often talk about their relationship with him. They say that he's loose, he offers freedom on the court. How is playing for him, and what is his approach for the players?
Yeah, I think for Ergin, he's, like you said, he has, you know, usually for us it was Vasa and Shane as like the two main creators, and everyone kind of filters in and finds their roles. But in terms of practices, we just played a lot. So we kind of knew everyone where they liked the ball, what they didn't like, but we understood that, like, for us to be the best, I have to star in my role, whatever that was. That year when we won the second time, 3 and D, you know, I'm gonna get the grenades, the last second shots. I'm at the guard, one of the best players. So he gives the freedom to play, but you know, he also holds you responsible. If you don't play well, he's gonna tell you. But he's more focused.
He's very vocal about it.
Yeah. He's and which rightfully so. I mean, you get paid to do this, and you have a good day, bad day. Okay, your coach holds you accountable, but that's the job we're in, and that's how it goes. But off the court, I would say when you play for him, you don't really talk that much, you know. But I probably talk to him more after not playing with them, you know, seeing him preseason, having him on our podcast with Shane and stuff like that. So yeah, he's a great guy.
Do you think that he has this player-coach mentality to work in the NBA, perhaps?
Yeah, I think his mentality is very, you know, close to NBA of like, okay, I'm the coach, but you're the player. You play on the court. Like, I'm gonna give you kind of a parameter to operate in, but you make the shots, you do this thing. So whatever you need to get ready, if that means you need to practice X amount or you don't need to practice, he gives you that freedom. But with that being said, he's gonna hold you accountable when you don't live up to what you're supposed to be doing. So I think it's good and bad, but it worked out really well for us, and it's working for him, obviously.
You mentioned the podcast with Sέin Lárkin. How did that idea come up?
Yeah, I think I told Shane, I mean, obviously we see all the NBA players that have it, and I think it was an opportunity to humanize him as a player. And we started, and it wasn't even like I wanted to be a co-host. I was just telling him, you have a big platform, you're one of the best players in EuroLeague. Why don't you start your own platform where you can kind of control the narrative? You know, I think you see a lot of times with media outlets saying stuff, but as players, you don't really want to like tweet back. So more so letting fans see you in a long form style and see how you think and what your direction is of how a game went or what you were thinking, you know, during that championship run.
You're also active on YouTube. What made you decide to share your story, your basketball journey, your family moments in a daily routine?
Yeah, I think for me, I die every time I see Steph Curry or those guys show anything of their routine and stuff. I'm just like just wanted to see, just to learn as much as possible. And okay, I'm not Steph Curry, LeBron James, but to some kids, I just have a little bit more experience in terms of basketball, and I know some things that I feel like that could help them. And then also, I think the biggest thing is why I started it is I feel like this next young generation is so fearful, anxiety, worried about everything. They have no confidence or faith. And I think just instilling faith in the youth will solve so many problems in our world, instilling them to, not be afraid to fail, instilling them to, chase their dreams instead of worried about if they fail, So the biggest thing is just to instill faith in the youth and show them my journey and show that I'm a human. I have good games, I have bad games, I have good mental health days, I have bad mental health days, but understanding that we're all on the same journey. I'm just a little bit farther in terms of experience, and hopefully my journey can help them be better than me.
Is this a way, a field, to say your side of the story, even for an incident like the Biberovic fight, for example, or to show the fans and the media that you're not just machines that play basketball?
Yeah, like LeBron said, we're more than a basketball player, and I think basketball is my job, and it just so happens that fans are able to watch and see what I do at my work, and then there's a objective stat sheet that they can grade you off of. There's no other job in the world in being a professional, sportsman where someone judges you. If you go to your 9 to 5 and you work in a cubicle and you have a paper due, no one can come and just comment, on Twitter with no profile picture and say whatever they want, So I think being able to just say your side and being able to speak your mind and come from your platform with no, alter objective behind it has been very beneficial for me, but also with, Shane's podcast and seeing the response we've gotten.
Is this side of yours perhaps the start of a dual career or the next career after basketball?
I don't know. I mean, whatever the Lord has in store for me after basketball, I definitely enjoy making content in terms of the idea of B-roll, storylines, that type of stuff. And I've loved that since I was a kid. So it just so happens that I was decent at basketball, and all of a sudden I played in Euroleague, I played in the NBA, and people want to follow me for some reason. So I think it allows me to practice things that maybe I would want to do after, like you said, but we'll see what happens. I don't know if it's going to media or whatever, but I definitely enjoy making films.
Media and fans sometimes think, the professional athletes spoil guys, the money is big, the status is so high, with easy calls. How do you make your big decisions?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is always my Lord and Savior. That's my foundation. So I always take a bird's eye view to everything, wins, losses. You kind of have to take an eye back and say, okay, I'm healthy, my family's healthy. And when you do that, it allows you to understand that basketball is a game. Yes, I understand there's crazy fans and they bet on the games. We hear that stuff all the time. But at the end of the day, those people that say that stuff, they're not with me in the summer when I'm working out twice a day. They're relaxing on the beach doing something, enjoyable. So if my biggest thing is if I wouldn't take advice from you, then I don't really listen to what you have to say.
Obviously a bowler, a father, a podcast host, but who is really Elάιζα Μπράιαντ, and how do you want to be mentioned?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just to, first, like you said, father, all that stuff, follower of Christ, to help the next generation. It's not about what I gave to someone in sport, but how they felt when they encountered me, or the experience that we had, and how I, dealing with fans, signing stuff for them. But the main thing for me is just, if I can be remembered as someone who instilled faith in the next generation. The comments I get, hey, you helped me so much, because I was that kid, you know what I mean? And that's the biggest thing is at that moment for that kid, that's the biggest thing he's gone through in his life. His coach isn't playing him, and that's the only thing he's worried about. So if I can instill faith in him to know, first of all, take a bird's eye view, allow it to settle, implement your systems, and everything will work out, then I feel like I won. If I'd done it for one kid, I've won.
Is basketball such a defining side for the athletes, or there's a room, to change the aspect for the fans and the media?
Yeah, I think basketball is something that we do. It's kind of a costume we put on. We go to the arena, we practice, do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we have other hobbies. You can't play basketball 24 hours a day. And I know a bunch of fans always say, oh, you need to practice, you need to do more. We only can be in the gym for so long. And part of being productive in the gym is finding those outlets outside, whatever that is. Painting, reading, Legos, a lot of guys have it because it's such a high stress job that you have to find ways to decompress in healthy ways.
What is your definition of the purpose in life?
Purpose in life is to come down here in this mortal journey. It's one big test, right? Come down here in this mortal journey and we're given agency, which is freedom to choose on do good or do bad. And one day we'll return to our, Heavenly Father in heaven, and He'll welcome us in and say, you did good, my faithful servant. But as we're here, in order to progress, we have to be able to understand that we'll make mistakes, but that's why the atonement, that's why Jesus died for our sins, allowing us to make mistakes and learn from them, but continue to progress back to our Heavenly Father.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.